Let's take a look at for loops in Java. Hey, they're just the same as they are in JavaScript. They have three parts. So the first part says what to begin counting at. In this case, I have a variable x. It's going to start at 1. The second part says continue counting or continue iterating as long as this condition is true. So in this case, keep going as long as x is less than 11. And the third part is what to count by, or what to change this index by. In this case, it says change x by 1, x equals x plus 1. So begin counting at 1, keep going as long as x is less than 11, and count by 1s. So presumably, this for loop will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that is it. And you can see I ran it on the side. It says count is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And one interesting thing here, it says the value of x after the loop is 11. Well, the loop keeps going as long as x is less than 10, but the final time, x actually gets incremented to 11, but then the for loop no longer runs. It actually jumps out of the for loop, and it ran this system.out.print statement at the end and said that the value of x after the loop is 11. Now, normally people don't write for loops like this. You see how I declared x before the for loop? X is an integer, and then inside the for loop, I initialize x and I count. Normally people don't write for loops like this. Normally, for loops are written like this. And here is the normal for loop in Java, where you actually declare the value that you're starting from inside the loop. So inside this for loop, I'm saying x equal, in this case, I'm using I'm sorry. I begins at 1, keep going as long as I is less than 11. And this is the other way of incrementing. Instead of saying I equals I plus 1, I can just say I plus plus. And as you know already, this will count from 1 to 10. Now this is interesting. If I now try to get the value of I after the loop, and I'm going to compile, and you can see what's going to happen here. It is going to tell me there's an issue. It's going to tell me it cannot find the symbol variable I. Well, why can't it find the symbol variable I? It is because I is declared inside of this for statement. So I only exists in between these two curly brackets. If I try to use I beyond the curly bracket, I will get an error. I is like a super local variable that only exists inside the for loop. And this is actually how standard for loops are written. You typically would not try to use the index variable outside of the for loop. So write them like this. I guess I just showed the other one so you can see occasionally it's done that way, but it's typically not. So hopefully this makes sense. Again, for loops have three parts. You declare a variable, initialize it. This is the condition, keep going as long as this is true. And then the last part is what to increment by. And let's just look at one more quick example. It's a quick video. This is a nested loop. Now, a nested for loop is, of course, a loop within a loop. And let me just space this up a little bit. So here is my nested loop. Of course, you can have a loop within a loop within a loop if you want. So maybe you should pause the video for a moment and see if you can figure out what the output will be. Did you do it? All right. The outer loop increments x from 1 to 4, right? It says keep going as long as it's less than 5. The inner loop, I'm using a variable y to go from 1, it says y less than or equal to 3. So the inner loop will go up to 3, and the inner loop is going to print out the value of y, and then when it exits this inner loop, it'll print out this parentheses, and of course before the inner loop, it'll print out the value of x and an open parentheses. So what do you think the output will be? Well, x equals 1, then it'll print out the value of x, which is 1, and open parentheses, and then it enters this inner loop, and it completes the inner loop until it's done. So it'll write out the value of y, which begins at 1. It'll write out 1. It'll keep iterating. It'll write out 2. It'll write out 3. It'll exit the inner for loop. It'll print out the close parentheses, and then it'll go back up and get the next value of x, which is 2. So it'll write out 2 with an open parentheses, and then it'll begin this inner for loop from scratch, as if it's never seen it before. So it should write out 1, 2, 3 again, a closed parentheses, it gets the next value of x, it writes the value of x with an open parenthesis, it iterates through the inner for loop, and so forth. So let me just run this real quick, and you'll see it'll write out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then after that, you'll see, well, let me just run the thing, for God's sakes. All right. So here we go. It writes out, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the inner loop writing 1, 2, 3, and then 2, 1, 2, 3. I think I mistakenly said that it would write out the x value 5 and then 1, 2, 3 again, but of course it doesn't because it's just going from 1 to 4. So here's your basic nested loop. Hopefully this makes sense as well. You've seen all of this before in JavaScript, so hopefully you're good to go.